So one way to get plants established was hydroseeding. This is on Fire Station 12. And this was an experiment, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, where sedums were hand broadcasted. Is that right? Cuttings were hand broadcasted. And then a tackifier, that's that green stuff you can see it coming out of the hose there, was sprayed down to adhere those sedums to the soil and make sure they're not going to blow off. Provide them with a little bit of water absorptive with a paper fiber probably that's in that mix. And then you can see the fire station here on the 12. So it's not that we've heard some concepts about actually including sedums within a hydro mix mulch and spraying that down, but that wasn't what was happening here. And Tom, was there a seed mix in that as well that went on Fire Station 12? Or was it just a tackifier?
No, I think there was a seed mix. I think that's why there's so many
grasses coming up.
Right. But I don't remember for sure. I should check that.
So seeds. So another option, of course, is seeds, cuttings, and plugs. And so when we talk about seeds, we're not talking about really sedum seeds. We're talking about other plant material that you might have, grass seed, native grasses, those kinds of things. So you can use those, of course, to cover or plant on your Ecoroof. Cuttings is a really good way as well. There's lots of nurseries out there that you can purchase cuttings, bags of cuttings from, and you apply them at a certain pound per square foot rate. And that seems to be a pretty good way to go. It's cheap. It's fairly fast because you can just hand broadcast those. But on a couple of roofs that we've seen where you might hand broadcast, and either on Fire Station 12 use a tackifier so those cuttings don't blow around, or use a jute matting to just place on top of those, keep them against that soil, make sure that they're going to root, and then that jute matting would maybe go away over time. And then another way is just plugs. So you just might have a little sedum sprig that's been planted at a nursery in a 3-inch or 4-inch depth plug, and those can go in fairly quickly as well. But that's another way to get a good quantity. But what you don't get is you don't get that immediate greening using these types of techniques: seeds, cuttings, and plugs, cuds and pluggings. So they're good, cost-effective, I would say lower labor hours. But you don't get that immediate greening effect. Yeah.
Back to the tackifier, was that successful? And do you guys have any research that shows a difference between using tackifier versus using nothing at all versus using jute netting, as far as keeping the seeds in place, keeping out birds and other issues?
No, we don't. All we have is the observations that we have from these projects. And so the one that we have with the jute matting, it appears to be doing pretty well. The Fire Station 12, it's hard to say whether the hydroseeding was successful or not, just due to the other kind of issues that we talked about in the previous session with soil material, the slope, the drainage mat, those kinds of things. So really, to say, one is more successful than the other, we don't really have that information yet.
We do have one project, the Metro building, which is across the river, and it was planted with cuttings, and it didn't use jute, and it didn't use hydroseeding. It was just cuttings broadcast, and then that was done in August, and then it was irrigated, and it was actually it got some pretty good coverage within about 3 months. It had about 40 or 50% coverage of those. It looked really barren when it was first planted. You couldn't even see the cuttings.
Right.
But after about 3 or 4 months. So it doesn't appear to be a big difference in the method. And I don't think anybody's doing the hydroseeding anymore that I know of. I'm not sure.
Yeah. And what's, I think, good to point out now, with the cuttings, Tom, on Metro, they still accomplished a design with that. Is that correct? So that's one thing to think about, if there is actually a aesthetic design that you might want to create with waves or bands of one color. Hand broadcasting a mix of sedum sprigs, you're not going to get that. It's going to be more of a meadow, I would call it, effect. But if you use one specific variety in the Metro building, if you guys have seen it, there's kind of a red circle where it's, coral carpet or something album that they used in the middle. and then just more of a green sedum around the outer edge, and I don't know what that species is, but you can still accomplish then a fairly simple design with cuttings. So that's, I guess that's what we want to say about that. There's also just 4-inch pots. That's what I used on my roof. It was fairly simple. Went to the nursery, picked up some sedums, and were able to install them. It goes in pretty quickly, but I was still up there. I had two of my coworkers helping me, and it still took us, it was 160 square feet, and it took us probably an hour and a half to install. I think it was 150, something like that, 125 plants. So you got to take them out of the pot. And what's interesting though is with 1 gallon material, I bought some fescue. Well, 1 gallon material is about yay deep. And you take it out of the pot and you look at the little hole that you just created in your roof, and mine's about 3 inches deep, and it ain't going to happen. So, you got to break up all that soil, so that takes time, or you have to cut off the bottom of it and then install a really short section of that 1 gallon plant material. So be cognizant if you're using 4-inch pots that it probably will work okay with the depth of soil that you're using, but if you're using 1 gallon material, there's going to be some installation issues that you will need to acknowledge, either knowing that landscape contractor is going to cut off the bottoms of these things, or maybe you can find an alternative or a smaller plant material to use.
This photo. Is this the People's Co-op?
Sunnyside
Oh.
Elementary.
Are you starting to see, as it emerges, are you starting to see kind of standardized or expected installation productivity rates for the different kinds of plant material? Like, with this size of crew, you should be able to install X square feet of this kind of material. Just so as you're starting to anticipate labor costs for projects and trying to fit within certain standards. Are you starting to see that?
That's a great question. So he's talking about labor rates on different types of installation techniques. And I think that would be great questions for landscape contractors when they're bidding jobs, or things for you guys to consider when you're doing design work out there, is that if you're looking for more inexpensive, I would say, of course, the seeds, the cuttings, and maybe the plugs would be the cheapest route to go. Pots and other things we're going to get maybe a little bit more labor intensive. But as for specifics, no. But I think that would be a great question for landscape contractors to answer that when they're bidding on jobs. So I just wanted to talk about this one. So this is the Multnomah County building on your right, and this was installed with both pots and grass seed. So there was a design that was laid out for kind of the edges of this, where pots were installed on a purposeful aesthetic. And then for the middle area, right in here, there was more of a grass-like meadow, and so they were able to use seeds for that area to establish that material. So that's just a combination on that one, installation technique. And then this one had pots and cuttings. So again, you can see a very purposeful grid pattern here with probably 1 gallon plant material. And then in between is more of just a meadow design, so you're able to just use cuttings and hand broadcast those in between, and they'll take and then create a fairly nice kind of mixture of sedums all across here, and then yet your kind of purposeful grid will still remain. So that's a nice combination of techniques there.